I'd like to thank the Process Art Discovery audience for joining me today. I'm Lynda Norman. I'm a watercolor artist in British Columbia, and today we're going to talk about vignettes created in the style of letters of the alphabet. Vignettes. Oh my gosh, everybody loves vignettes, and they are so fun to do, especially with watercolor, because you get that flow. When you get the right mix of water and pigment on your page, it's magic, and I just love it. When I did the first one a while back, I used the letter L, which is my initial, as a starting point, just because sometimes it's hard to think about where to start. And so with this technique, I use water spatter from my trusty little dollar store bottle. And yeah, so I started off suggesting we just start with the letter L. So I put the spatter in the shape of a letter L, and here we have our vignette. Got lots of response to that one, and people were asking about other letters. So the next letter I tried was the letter C. Tons of fun, tons of fun. Different color scheme a little bit, more of the fall tones, lots of rocks involved. With this one I did a bit of a sky in the background, but that's not always necessary with a vignette. You can leave them just plain. And then of course, once this one happened, we had lots of requests for other letters. So I went on to try a letter B. This one's not quite finished. I will add, I think, a more strong tree trunk, almost like a willow tree, that will have branches coming in from the sides. But that's for another day. Today, I thought we'll try something with a different orientation. And I'm going to show you again, because sometimes if you've not worked on a block before, a block is watercolor that is attached along the sides, all around, except for one little spot, with glue. And so you can remove that with a palette knife just by simply running it around the edge. I've taped the edge of mine with my black solo tape because I like to have that finished feeling. So it kind of gives me an idea of what it's going to look like under a black mat, which is how I very often like to finish my paintings and have them framed. So they come off as simple as that. Oops. So we'll set that one aside until a day when I have time to work on on those tree trunks. So those were all portrait orientation. I thought today we'd try something on a landscape. And I'm thinking maybe the letter M would nicely fill that, or a W. A W could work as well. Now that's a dilemma. Which one am I going to do first? Well, I said M first, so let's do M first. This is how we make decisions around here, right? Okay, I'll put my palette knife away. I'm going to take out my tape. Today I'm going to be using my favorite Arches paper. Turn this around so you can see it. It's a watercolor block. It's a fine grain, which is a little bit different from what I often use, is more of a rough grain. But this is, for fine grain, it's still got a bit of a texture to it, which is quite lovely for this technique. Because we're going to use a little bit of the plastic with the bread tab to make rocks and different things perhaps. We'll see where our M takes us. It's 140 pounds, 300 GSM, that's grams per square meter. That's how they measure paper in the big grand scheme of things. 100% pure cotton. Arche, I can't find anything yet that compares, so I'm always happy to be back painting on my Arche 100% cotton paper. It's part of my team. My brushes, my pigments, my water, all my tools are things that I've just developed a relationship with and have come to really appreciate. And the more I paint, the more comfortable I am with knowing what they will do with the things that I throw at them. So, all right, I'm going to give my paints just another little wake-up call. I haven't yet decided what color schemes I'm going to use today. The ones that I've done so far have always been with my own color palette, the one I put together for myself, and I might just stick with that today. I'll keep my other palette here with the colors that Michael Soloviev has recommended for his workshops. I'm going to keep that woken up and ready to go just in case, you know, we need something as a highlight or something jumps out and indicates that we need to do a little bit different colors. All right. So I've woken up my paints. I've got my paper ready to go. I will quickly give this just a quick tape off. Sorry for the noise on the microphone. It's annoying, but it's important. I'll hold it out there. See if that makes a difference, right? With this size paper, which is 12 inches by 16 inches, I found that if I use my 1-inch tape on the short ends and my 3/4 inch tape on this side, it makes it so that it fits nicely in most standard mats that you can get from your local craft stores or wherever. This is the solo tape from Michael Soloviev's Watercolor Online Studio. I just love the black. For me, it's the background that works with my eyes best. I found that painter's tape, blue tape, green tape, very distracting for me, and I just feel like this gives me a better sense of where I'm headed with things and what the completed piece might look like. So, quickly just giving that a bit of a boundary. The letter M. For this technique, I like to use a spray bottle that has the ability to just spatter. So if I just pull gently, the water comes out. You can see it on my surface here on the side. Maybe this is easier. It just comes out in droplets. There's no rhyme or reason to them. They're not joined in any way. Some of them maybe just because that's the way they fall out, as opposed to this mister bottle that just gives us a very fine mist, which is what I use for wetting my palette. And for bigger washes, if I want to do a sky, then I would do a nice mist, perhaps, if I didn't want to use my brush to wet down that paper. What this will allow is the water can be more directed. Now I have to decide whether I'm going to do a lowercase m or an uppercase m. And I think I will do a lowercase m. So let's start. And because we've got this nice big expanse of paper, we can use the whole thing. So I'm going to start up and a little first half of the M. And there's the rest of the M. McDonald's. Just like McDonald's. All right. Got my spatter down. My paints are wet and juicy. Puppy's having fun upstairs. Okay, so we have our M shape. If I look at an angle, I can kind of see where the water has fallen. There may be some irregularities to the M. That's the way the water happened to hit, and so that's what we'll go with. Typically, I start with the Mayan dark blue because when it dries, I just love how that color diffuses and becomes light. almost misty. So I'm just going to touch that into some of those wet drops and let the water and the pigment move as they will. One of the things you may notice is that I paint flat on the surface. Some people like to tilt their page. I prefer just to leave it flat, and if I need it to be tilted, I can move that myself. So I don't mind that this is kind of pooling here, because it will give me a nice anchor for the base of the M. And I'm not going to get too much into that beginning part yet. That can happen later if we decide we need to do more. And I think I'm going to work on the center part now. Just see where that takes us. Look how beautiful that paint, that pigment just wants to flow and follow those droplets of water. So it's a little abstract-y, a little organic. Once I get the basis in, then I can sit back and have a look at what's happening on the page and see what it inspires me to create. It's interesting that this, I mean, typically I'm a landscape painter, but this is already reminding me of a city scene, street lamp, and some edges of buildings and some alleyways and things. So who knows? Who knows? We could be on the precipice of a whole new art journey for me. There we go. All right. Now I've got that center part. I'm just going to leave that. I'm going to let that work and do its movement as it needs to. And then my end piece, the last part of the M. And I see where I've sort of spattered off, which is kind of interesting. So I'm going to leave that because we've used the M as our inspiration, our guideline, but that doesn't mean it has to stay true to that form. It was our starting point, and I want to explore how this is coming over into this corner. I kind of like that. We'll see what that turns into as we go along. I don't know what I'd do without my Mayan dark blue. It is just, it performs like a star every time I touch it to the paper. Having just come back from Scotland and seeing the buildings, the architecture, the old stone and the towers and the bits of craftsmanship that came together to form these buildings was. These castles were just amazing. I tried to sketch one of them the other day, and I felt like I had missed the mark somehow. But that's kind of what this is reminding me of here. So maybe it'll turn into an old cityscape, which is kind of fun. We'll do a new cityscape in the future. I've got some ideas for our next videos, so we'll see how that goes. All right. I'm usually a fairly fast painter, but I do like to stop and have a look and just sort of see where things are headed and where the water and the pigment want to go. Often when I'm near the end of a painting session where I think I'm almost done, or think I am done. I'll take a photograph and I will go out of the studio, make a cup of tea, go make dinner, sit for a little while, pull a photo out and have a look at it. And that will tell me very often, very glaringly in fact, where I need to make adjustments, where I can go with a painting. Things will show up that I hadn't noticed before, and I can go back in and I can enhance that, work on that a little bit more. Right now I'm just having fun letting the water droplets pull the pigment in whatever direction they would like to go. Now I won't go back in ever when this portion of the painting is still drying. Any moisture that I add now will just cause puddles and pools and change the dynamic of where the paints are headed. So I wouldn't add more spatter to that painted area. I might, if I wanted to, I could cordon off some of that with a piece of paper and then spray in certain areas. But I think right now I'm just going to keep filling in these water droplets and see where they head. I see where in my initial spray I didn't, the droplets didn't land in this section, so that's going to be an interesting bit to consider once we get there. Okay. Now this could be a spot where I do tip the page slightly. I don't think there's enough, other than right in here, there's really not enough water on the page to do much. And I'm going to just bring that up. You can see where this brush is so important in my studio. It is just the handiest tool. I can be as delicate and careful as can be. Then I can also do big washes with it as well. So I think what's happening here is a bit more moisture than I want. So I'm just going to go in with the edge of my paper towel and just drink up some of that. It's going to keep it damp enough that I can go back in with a tiny bit of that blue on the tip of my brush and just add it in, and it will continue to move around and create that basis for this center pillar. All right, so this might turn out to be a bit of a fantasy piece. As I'm looking at it, I can see perhaps a little doorway here going off into somewhere. I wish I could paint a dragon. I'd put a dragon in here. It might fit the theme. All right. So now is the crucial point when I have to decide really where this is going to go. All right. So I do see a hillside here. Maybe this is the mouth of a cave. Because I've got the blue as my basis, so I've kept the M in there, I can go in with other colors now and elaborate. And so we'll see where this heads. going to switch brushes. I'm going to go to my solo. It's about 1.5 inches wide, I think. It holds quite a bit of water. And I'm going to fill in, and I'm just going to start playing with some color. See what happens. Now if I wet this without touching my initial layer of Mayan dark blue, I'm going to see if I can use a wider brush. I just have an idea. I'm not sure how this is going to turn out. This is all about the play. Let's see where we head with this. So I'm using the Solar brush that's a bit wider. It's got 5 prongs as compared to the 3. I love these brushes because they hold a ton of water, but also they can be brought to a chiseled point. So I can draw lines with them. So what I'm thinking here is, I've got a bit of a line here. I might build on that and build a building of some sort. I am not an architectural or a technical artist at all. So this is going to be an experiment. So welcome along. Let's see, this is a bit of a grayish color. And we'll just see if we can create some kind of a building. I don't know what kind of a building it's going to be. A structure. Let's not call it a building because we might need a more looser term. A structure. And we'll just get the edges of that happening. And we'll make it a little bit longer here. And my perspective is non-existent, but that's all right. Did I mention we're going to call this a fantasy piece? And then let's make another tower up here. And then another one across here. I'm going to have to change that a bit. They might start looking like silos. Might be a farmyard before we know it. Oh my gosh. All right. Bring that up a little bit. And over a little bit further. And we'll leave this as it'll be the hint of a structure. How about that? And the paper is buckling a little bit, so it's kind of a challenge to make a straight line, but that's all right. Going to, oh, wrong. Forgot to add the water. This is purely an imagination piece. If anybody has any ideas on where this M could end up, or where we could take it if we try it again, let me know. You can see where I've added the water, and it just touched the edge of where the Mayan dark blue was over on this side, and I love that it's got that bit of a bleed in it. And let's put in another tower over here, and then another bit of a wall over here. Oh my goodness, that's nice and dark. In that case, let's put some dark over here. Balance things a tiny bit. Just because it's fantasy doesn't mean it can't be balanced a little bit, eh? Okay. Yeah, just a tiny bit of, just a touch of color here and there. A little pathway coming out into the foreground here. And very monochromatic this far. Maybe it's time to start adding a bit more color in. Think about what color would maybe enhance that that blue and make it really, really fantasy-like. Put a bit of purple in there and see how that goes. And a little bit over here. And then we'll go back to our smaller brushes. So my blue has pretty much dried. I'm interested in seeing what happens now if I was to add just a bit more and use, let's do quinacridone dark gold for a change and see how that plays with what's happening on the page. Let some of this, where that paint dropped and it made a mark and I couldn't pick it off, I'll just create a bit of that gorgeous rusted. This is the quinacridone dark gold. It doesn't lighten, of course, as much as the quinacridone gold, but you can see here where it's pushing away, it's moving into that wetter area, which is really, really quite beautiful. And we'll add it into, I don't think that purple was the best idea. I'm going to cover that with the gold. I think that's a better plan. With the side of my brush, I can just pull those colors across. Getting a bit of a shadow effect where I had that purple in there. I can see where the purple is reacting with the water here and creating a bloom, and that's not really what I had in mind either. So let's see what we can come up with here and see where this... There are some colors that react better and follow the water without creating the harsh blooms, and some that just blend in beautifully with... You can see here where the quinacridone dark gold is blending with the Mayan dark blue, and the colors that it's creating on its own are just quite spectacular. So when I do these, I just kind of keep adding paint and playing with it and seeing where things will end up. See where that took off. Because the paper is slightly buckled, it will cause the pigments and the water to move in certain directions, depending on which way the paper is tending to fold. I really love this area in here, and I just hope I can maybe have enough moisture there to create some of those color blends that are so beautiful. Add a bit more water to that area there with just with water on my brush. And we're just starting to fill in some areas. Just taking some plain water and running it down this area here. I'm going to fill in this whole space with just some water. Because I love how the Mayan dark blue and the quinacridone deep gold have played together in this area here, I'm going to add the water, extend that out a little further, and then, pardon my reach, just a bit of the gold in here to see where it's going to take things. As it's mixing with the purple and the blue, it's just absolutely gorgeous. And I like that a bit of that purple is kind of coming through. It's almost like it's bruised underneath, and it's just gorgeous. This color is very similar to the bronze tones of the bracken in Scotland. That as winter and fall approach, they just change to such beautiful colors. Now I can see where I'm almost seeing mini scenes emerging as I move the colors and the pigment around. And with this little brush, I can get in there and I can just barely touch some of the pigment, allow that to run in together. So these kind of projects can be a real exercise in learning what your paints can do, seeing what they can do, and try whatever inspires you, whatever might come from just putting colors down and seeing what happens. I'm going to try this way now from that gold, and I'm just, as I did here from the blue over, I'm going to try this way from the gold over and see what happens if we add a bit of that blue on the side of the brush. Some of these are emerging into trees. It seems to be the way my brush takes me often. So from this, I can see almost like a pathway moving up the hillside. So pivot. I'm changing this from a building to some trees going up the hill. One of the things I just love about watercolor. And playing. Let it happen. So you can see where the light play happened. The quinacridone dark gold pushed everything away, even itself, and it's left a really light, beautiful look there. And if I was to go down and just, with a damp brush, pull a little bit out, it will give us that beautiful pathway coming down into the center part of the M. You see what I mean by paintings almost paint themselves. A little nudging, a little encouragement, a little imagination. There it is. I just want to define a couple of tree shapes in here just to get us back to that forest feel and away from those wonky buildings that I was trying to create. And we'll just move that color back and forth a tiny bit. And we have another tree there. Beautiful. Another beautiful tree. These are little shadowed areas, little bit of trees in there maybe. So this on its own, on this one side of the M, is almost a painting. I'd be tempted almost to leave that as it is, as a painting. Fine tune a little bit here and there with some pathways and some hidden parts of the forest. And now we can move back to this side. So again, now that those back layers are dry, I can go in with just a little bit of, this is stained a bit from my brush because I didn't rinse it quite as much. But that's okay, we can make that darker again once we get the inside of this side filled up. So let's see if we can create this into another little mountain scene. We can have two sides of the mountain. A little bit of quinacridone deep gold over on this side, just and this can be made into a vignette just by pulling down a little bit of those beautiful colors. So they just kind of drop away into nothingness. Pulling out some of that blue from that area there, we can make it almost like it was its own huge big old blue spruce. And we'll just pull out some branches just to give that tree a bit of personality. Yeah. What I love about watercolor too is that you can go in and change. I mean, I know with other paints, acrylics and oils, you can paint over the top. And in watercolor, unless you're using a gouache or multimedia, that's not the option. But you can manipulate, you can move things around and create new shapes, new things happening. I love that this tree has emerged from that castle wall. We're lucky that these pigments are so lovely together. I think if you were to, maybe try other combinations, you might not get this luscious blending that we're seeing here. And now that I've still got a bit of moisture on my page, I can just sort of feather these colors over, let them blend, let them dry into their own shapes. And it's it's not necessary to paint every minute detail. You can tell that this is a stand of trees. And you don't have to fill in every space with color. A little bit of white in the background is often exactly what you need in this part here, for example, I wouldn't change that. I like that texture that it allows. On this side, I might just add a bit more of the feathering with a bit of the gold. And so this side of the M is going up and down. This one I've got a little bit more back and forth. I can change that slightly as well by adding just, because we've got that gorgeous tree there and we've got this pathway, I'd like to save that. I just want to make this, maybe this area here, just a little more like another tree. So let's, a little bit of water, spread that out, give those trees some extra darkness on the edge. And spread that around a little bit just so that it helps to join the forces. Let's do another one in here, just a bit of darkness for the center of our M, so we can keep that, preserve that initial thought. And these are just going to require very thin lines. And they don't have to run top to bottom. You know that there's a tree back there somewhere, and you don't always have a clear view to it. And then as they dry, the color will still continue to diffuse. And I just am going to give a little bit of darkness to the base, so we have a bit of grounding happening on our design. So that's Mayan dark blue on the side of the brush and just pulling up ever so slightly just to leave a bit of darkness. And we have a bit of a horizon line for the basis of our design. This fellow looks a little odd by himself out here, orange in the middle, so we're just going to go in with our Mayan dark blue, which just what's left on our brush, and I'm just touching the tip very barely into the water, just enough to allow my brush to spread it a little further out. And then when I get down here, I want to I just want to give these guys a bit of bit more body. So I'm just going to feather that out slightly. This one as well, feather him out a little bit. Give a little more body to these fellows. And I don't mind that this quinacridone dark gold is showing up here so much because it's darker, but on this side it doesn't seem to be as dark, so I'm just going to fill in just with a little bit of light color. One more dab of the quinacridone, just very briefly in here with a bit of water to brighten it. And I just want to bring this image of a tree just out a little bit so that it doesn't look like the side of the castle that was there before. All right. I'd be tempted to leave this one the way it is. I love that the colors came together. I love that our castle morphed into a beautiful, rich forest of blues and golds. And touch that a tiny bit, give it a bit of lightness in there. You can see how a damp cloth or paper towel can really allow you that, that kind of shadowing, shading dimension. There's our letter M for what it's worth. I hope you enjoyed watching watching this process and watching things morph and watching how you can create as you go. And it doesn't, if you don't really have an end result in mind, you have a bit of a basis for starting, let your mind wander, play around, see what the colors want to do, and enjoy. I'd like to thank the Process Art Discovery audience for joining me today. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe to the channel.